looks like it's working. So we each need to have our microphones turned on.
Is Greg's with us today?
I don't know where he is,
Okay.
but oh well.
And what was your name, dear? You're Nancy.
Nancy Curtis.
Curtis, that's what I thought. Bob's here. Kimber's here. Got Blair.
I'm ready when y'all are.
Good morning. Let's go ahead and kick off the meeting.
Morning, Wally.
Start with a roll call. I'm going to start with the bottom. I'm going to call each name. Just respond with here. James Curtis. Not here. Nancy Patton. Not here. Deborah Northern.
Here.
Bob Dalton.
Here.
Nancy Curtis.
Here.
And myself, Wally Shreves. Lena Tucker. Not present.
She said she notified that she would not.
Okay. And Blair Larson is here from our city staff.
Yeah, Angela couldn't be here this morning because of an appointment.
Yep. All right, let's move on to time reports. If anybody has any, please email those to Angela. I'll go over, I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
have some now. So if you take a moment and read through the meeting minutes from the last meeting. And when you have, if I can get a motion to approve, we'll move forward.
Uh-oh. Take a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Minutes approved. Since we have come to the time in our meeting for public comment, if there's any public comment out there? Okay, and we'll move on to Sankey Park project update.
I apologize for all of my colleagues. I think that originally this meeting was canceled and then it was back on, and I think that screwed up with a lot of people's calendars. So I don't have any major updates on Sankey. I do know that things are proceeding. If you haven't been there lately, there have been a number of more trees that have been cleared out, and some grading that was done. And they are proceeding with getting the rest of the paths worked out. They're laying conduit and getting ready for more lighting along those paths.
It's looking better every day.
So yeah. There's exciting things going on. So any questions on Sankey or the work that's being done? I know there was some concerns about the trees taken out.
I have some concerns about the ivy.
Mm-hmm.
I live adjacent to the 16th entrance, 16th Avenue entrance.
Mm-hmm.
And probably within the last 12 months, I've worked on some of the ivy on some of the trees, but they're starting to grow again from the ground. We've got to get that stuff out from around those.
Okay.
So whenever we have time, we should get in a work day on some of that ivy.
Okay.
Okay.
Nancy joined us.
Yeah, for the record, Nancy Patton is present.
That's all good.
That's all right.
Not a problem.
I just, one follow-up. After our last meeting, we talked about the Weddell Bridge and, reaching out for some services there. Since that time, I reached out to ODOT because ODOT has engineers that work on covered bridges that are actually still in service. I did get a series of emails back from them, and the last one, they passed it on to a person in Washington, DC, to see if there was any funding available out there. So it was kind of interesting that it went from here to there.
And that's fairly quick for ODOT too.
I mean, it was just.
That's really
passed it.
interesting.
Hot potato.
They must have strained a muscle.
I don't know, it was pretty interesting because they went from one person, it went to 3 different desks.
Wow.
Can you help Bob? Can you help the city of Sweet Home?
Yeah.
And then it, like I said, I haven't heard back from this whoever in Washington, DC, but it was kind of interesting. It went that far with them.
Yeah.
The other one, I reached out to the Oregon Covered Bridge Association, and I have not been able to contact them. Even though they have contact numbers, I've been leaving messages and getting no feedback from them yet. So I'll still pursue that one as well.
And that may be something that we want to be a member of anyway,
Yeah.
and try to participate with.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what I got on the Wattle Bridge piece.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, moving on, Beautification Committee update.
I really don't have anything on that group other than they're out doing their thing and planting flowers and continuing to meet on future projects. They do have a list of different parks that they're working on and pieces of beautification. Again, volunteers is the need for them.
Ashley said last week they planted 2,000 flowers.
It's amazing.
It is. My daughter-in-law, my son just got, he's working for the city now, so my daughter-in-law doesn't have a job yet, so whoops. So we recruited her to help with beautification.
Good job.
Good.
We kind of told her, we didn't ask.
Okay, let's move on to our next item, Pocket Park naming update. So I still have tentatively named the 2 parks, Four Corners and Nandina. Those are the names that come to mind. And when I talk to the engineer here about it, that's what we refer to them as. So if you don't have a problem with it, I'll get with,
Wally, did we ever get any input from the community on that?
that's what I'm going to work on.
Okay,
I'm going to cover that down here also.
I can help with that too.
Yeah.
I live right down the street.
Did you want to talk to Legia about that?
Legia
Yeah.
about getting it posted.
Okay.
And then all I was gonna do was take my pop-up and go sit there on 2 different days at each park and look for input from the community. And at the end of that, have her do the same thing as we're doing for Upper Sankey. Maybe not as long, because I don't think there's that big of an impact to it, and
Right.
then move forward.
Yeah, I think for a post, she's just going to want the details on when you'll be there.
Yeah.
And then probably a good picture
Yep.
of the site.
Sure.
That we can post with it.
Okay,
So Wally, remember one time we talked about, because people like to walk?
yeah,
Maybe we could make that, like between that park and the other parks, a route.
South Hills Park or South Hills Trails or,
What, no, from Nandina
Oh, I
up
see.
to the Four
Sure.
Corners, all that stuff.
yeah,
And have like they have in Sun River, other places, they have a little sign and shows you where to go next, and just a thought.
that might not be
There
bad.
are a lot
That's a
of
good
walkers in
idea.
our town.
Yeah, if we could get some people to do it at both sites at the same time and just have them walk between the 2,
Mhm.
might be a good, make
Yeah.
it an event.
Yeah,
There
but I
you
mean,
go.
permanent,
Oh,
like have signage up. You're walking on Sweet Homes, whatever,
right,
Parks Trail or something. I don't know.
okay. It's an idea.
Just a
Yeah.
thought.
They have that flyer that they put out and it shows all the trails in Sweet Home. So that's kind of what you're saying, to add that in there. Yeah. I like it.
I'm just writing it down.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, I've definitely volunteered to go sit out there and take input from people, and I think doing it, this is one I think I need to do early in the morning and later in the evening
Mm-hmm.
to catch people out walking, because predominantly from when I
Exactly.
talk to people, that's what they do. They either walk in the morning before work, get up and go for a walk, or they come home from work and gather up folks and go for a nice walkabout. So I think we would actually catch people out walking around.
First thing in the morning, it'd be best up in Four Corners.
Yeah.
That's when I see most people out there.
So, okay. So that's where we're at on that. I would like to be able to have those named by August, I
Mhm.
think that's,
I think that's reasonable.
okay. Moving on to the tree inventory. I stopped doing Sankey Park because
Because
it was decreasing?
Because they're
Yeah.
cutting
there's no
down.
sense doing it.
It was done.
Plus the fact that I found out I can't identify the trees. I was having a real struggle with that.
Hmm.
So I found an app. I had to pay for it, which I don't care, but it's called Picture This, and
Mhm.
it works flawlessly,
Does it?
which I've checked it with many different trees, different angles. I can take a picture of just the what do you call it? The bark of the tree.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can back off and get pictures of the leaves, and it will give me the same answer. And if it doesn't know, it'll tell me I don't, you didn't give me enough info.
Right.
But and then some of them, because I did a bunch at my house, and I know what a lot of the stuff is we have planted, and it was right every time.
Wow.
So
Ooh.
I was really happy with it. So this morning I went to Strawberry Park, and I'll finish it right after this. There is no bathroom at Strawberry Park, so
Right.
if you drink a lot of coffee and go there, there's no place for a guy to hide either.
Mhm.
It's wide open, so I was moving rather quickly.
That's great.
It's but the diversity of trees, I just want to state this, the diversities of trees in that park, I thought was amazing.
Hmm.
I was getting really fed up because the tree would look similar. One was a white oak, and then what was it, an elm? There was one, oh, it was black. It was a green and a black something. And they were standing right next to each other, and they looked pretty much the same to me.
Yeah.
They're definitely, it's the same, I don't know if it was an elm or an ash or whatever it was, 'cause I don't know the trees, but I mean, it broke it down on every one of them.
Hmm.
Red cedars, there was just a smorgasbord of trees back in there. So that one will be done, and then I'm gonna move over to the little covered bridge park. And Clover and do that, 'cause it's another small park, and we can have another one done. And then all the trees at the old city hall, just because I know what they all are, and they're all exactly the same tree.
Wally,
I can do that at home.
I was wondering, when they planted those trees at Strawberry, wouldn't they have record of what they planted when they don't?
No.
Just
I have all the
random.
records of all the
Okay.
trees that everybody had between public.
We
works.
will when you get done.
Yep.
Okay,
It'll be all in there.
wonderful.
So
Awesome.
it's actually going pretty well.
I've heard of that app. I might have to check that out.
Yeah. That one works great, because I've got things that came up in my garden that I didn't know what they were,
Yeah.
in the middle of my green beans.
Mm.
I should try that in my house.
Actually, that's a great idea for just keeping from
Yeah, that's
pulling up the
good.
wrong thing. My kids can't tell a
Mhm.
good plant from a weed to
Yeah.
save their
Pull it
life.
up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't either. My wife gets irritated, so it's been a big help.
So Wally, real quick question. I know it's not right there on the agenda, but maybe we could get back to it. Remember the Clover Park update with the fire truck and stuff in there? Somebody was donating money, so maybe somebody can,
Yeah,
do
well-
you have a report on that for
We
later?
will talk about that. Oh, yeah, I can, if we're done
Later.
with the old business, I can go
Okay.
over the donor situation with the donor.
It
We
just,
just need to cover Arbor Day and the
Yeah.
Upper Sankey gathering.
when you said Clover Park, it went ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, we'll talk about that
I got it marked.
after the Arbor Day stuff.
So that's kind of it for the tree inventory. The leaves are out, so it's easier for me to look at them and get an idea, and it's warmer, and it's the bigger deal for me. It's light early in the morning, so
Mhm.
I can get up and go for a walkabout, and I carry my laptop and my phone, and take pictures and mark them down. So
All right.
should be a good summer for getting that done. So for Arbor Day, Upper Sankey, Arbor Day seemed to go well. I mean, we didn't have a big turnout. I did mark in my calendar for next year. I went ahead and put a ticker in of all the things that I thought we should do as far as notification, and I think that it would be good to bring in some. There's no reason that we have all these people around here that sell trees and plants and
Mhm,
shrubs, and none of them participate in that. That would be a good place to have them come in and do a tree sale
Hmm.
and maybe they do something special because it's Arbor
Or some
Day.
presentations on the trees that they
Mhm.
have and
Yeah,
why they're good and.
Yeah, very good.
yeah,
and-
yeah. Because I bought a few things since then and I thought, wow, that would have been great if these would have all been there and maybe we'd get more public link to that. So I
It-
put all the bunch of ideas down in a ticker for next year
Mhm.
to do it 2 months early and start communicating that and get it out.
A group used to sell those trees in Lebanon, where that furniture store
Yeah,
was.
right.
Yeah, that was a big deal.
Yep.
It was even, I think it was a fundraiser for the high school kids or something.
Yeah, I just looked around at what a bunch of other cities had done across the
Mhm.
country. Went, oh, you know, we missed that one, so
Yeah.
that'll make sure we don't miss it again.
I know that we got a significant amount of feedback online.
Good.
Oh,
On our website. And I haven't seen the totals of all that, but Angela and Legia have it all gathered together and seemed a
okay.
lot of people are interested in the pump track.
Yeah,
One
Yeah.
takeaway I had.
In the bathroom.
But I think it was a combination. It was keeping the BMX track and adding a pump track that was
yes,
really interesting, or that they were interested,
yep. And I think,
which means more money.
yeah, and that lines up, you know, we had a lot of input on day one when we were up there in the evening. And then the next day, the weather wasn't so great. And I think I mean, it was not good the next day. Nobody showed up after the first
Chilly.
hour.
Yeah, there was like 3 or 4 and that was,
Yeah.
that was
So,
it.
And we even had donuts.
yeah. Yeah,
It was nice to see how many people were actually using the BMX track
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
the day before.
yeah.
For their cars.
Well, cars and.
Yeah, everything.
But that was
Yeah,
something where
good.
most staff hadn't seen that many people using it. So
Right.
it was a good lesson for us that this is still a feature that people like.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of people there.
I think in the future, we could even have I'm an event person, so I'm always thinking of events. Maybe have, those car things and, have some kind of, that one guy was really interested in,
An RC rally. or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. maybe a fundraiser $1 to get in or whatever,
I asked
we'll
the guy
see.
if they did
Something like that.
competition. He said, no, we just do it for fun. He says, this is what we do to,
Yeah, but he came back twice.
oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, that guy, yes.
But sometimes a low key competition can draw people like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Because they're proud of what
I was
they've
talking-
done.
yeah.
Very different guy.
Cool.
Okay, well, let's move on to new business.
Well, it's not specifically on the agenda, but you asked. So the update on last meeting, we heard about the proposed donation and the proposal for dog parks and that fire engine playground. The Park and Tree Committee, you all voted to recommend acceptance of the donation to the city council with the caveat that Clover was not the ideal place for the playground, and we were suggesting that be moved to Strawberry. That is going before the city council at Tuesday's meeting. Next week, they will be reviewing that, and we're putting forward that recommendation that they do that. We haven't, I haven't heard back from the donors about how willing they are to make that change. But I'll be checking in with Mayor and Council Trask on that.
I would say that, we talked about it that day, and I know there was a lot of concern about parking, and after going there, and then I walked around it and tried to park near it, and I think that is true. On the other side was stated that you couldn't see anything, and I think that is not true. Because I can see into the park where the stuff would sit at, where we talked about putting it going west. You can see it very well. And even coming from the east, it's still visible, if not for, 10, 15 seconds as you're driving past. If there was a fire truck there, you would still see it.
Oh, thank
Is
you.
there any room there to add parking at all?
Not that I could see. You'd have to, because there's a house just,
Right.
the park looks like it even shutters behind the home a little bit. And so I don't know how much kid parking, parking for kids, families would do to pull them in there. I think you're going to get more people coming down from the Strawberry or that Strawberry Hill area. That's just my guess, people walking into it versus parking there. But
Especially with that busy street. I can't see unless parents are with their kids, you know, they could run out into both streets. Pretty
Yeah.
fast traffic.
I think where they talked about putting the fire truck, if it was in that back part and that's where the kids were at, I don't see them. And if you just had a light attention to your child, I don't see them getting out because it's
And
quite
it's
a
really
distance.
close to Strawberry.
Huh?
And it's really close to Strawberry.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, what, a block and a half away?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I was just saying, I went in there and walked around and I thought about my little guy
Mm-hmm.
when he was little and out of control more than he is now, which is not much of a change. But I was like, no, I would be keeping an eye on him here for the most part. And he would be focused on that. I don't think there's nothing else there for them to get excited about except for the covered bridge,
Right.
you know, to go down and walk through it.
So did you look into the wetland part of it? I know you would probably know, Bob, because your beautification.
I haven't looked at that.
I just remember when the city and beautification were working together, try to decorate that a lot at Christmas time. The beautification suggested that wasn't a good idea because it's so wet in there.
Yeah.
So we'd have to look into that too.
I didn't
You could
notice
put-
anything, but that was just
Well,
my,
it's summer, I mean, it's
observation.
summer now, but
Extremely dry this year.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So the bandstand is next. So the pictures you have in front of you, there's 4 pages and they show 4 different types of stage or pavilion kind of structures. I'll explain the current status of this. So when the latest trees were taken out of Sankey, it exposed more of the hillside. And so if you've been there recently, they've graded area where those trees were taken out, and there's kind of a bench now. There's like a bench, and then there's the slope up. That area is one of the areas where there's kind of the hillside makes more of a natural amphitheater, and it was thought that if we do put in a replacement bandstand, that would be an ideal location for it. The current bandstand, we've been trying to get enough data to present the city council so that they can make a good informed decision on what to do with it. The latest we wanted to get some information on it, just how much it would cost to bring it up to code. And because even if it's prohibitively expensive to do so, we want to at least present that information. Problem is, it's been really, really hard to get those kinds of estimates, and I don't understand exactly why, but the engineers are giving me different reasons of why that is. The latest word we had from our city engineer of record is that his opinion is that it cannot be brought up to code. That it doesn't matter how much money you throw at it, in order to bring it up to code, you're essentially putting together a new underlying structure. And so you're not really preserving the original. It's more changing it so much so that it's just the exterior is the same, is the kind of idea. And if you're going to do that, you can move
Upgrade
it. You can do it. You can make adjustments to it to make it more usable. So that will be, if I have enough time today to get all the documents together, that will be on the agenda for this Tuesday's city council meeting as well. So today, what I'd like to get your feedback on are some ideas that we've had about the stage. One of the things that I thought of when I looked at the current state and what they've graded out in that first bench, to me, the idea came that if whatever stage you put in, if you have it at the same level as that first bench, and then it sticks out from there, that would make it so that you could have an event facing the hillside, and it's all there on that first level, and then you could have seating up the hill, and have something that's a smaller event that's visible for all those folks, while at the same time, the same structure, not at the same exact time, but you could also have events that are directed the other way, that use it as a stage facing the rest of the park. And that way, and those would be for bigger events. And so you could have kind of a double use structure that could face either direction, and could be useful for different size events. And so that's one of the things I was trying to, Wally's wife, Adrienne, put together these renderings for us. And that was one of the things I was trying to convey to her. And so these are a couple, we basically gave her a couple of roof lines of pavilions and stages that we had seen in various catalogs that we kind of liked. And just wanted to have kind of some renderings putting these in place. And so when you look at these, we're not, these are preliminary. This is not like definitely the look we're going after no matter what. What I want you to pay attention to is mainly the roof lines and the positioning of things, and think about what we would want a bandstand to look like. And I know that these are all very different looking than the existing bandstand. I think the intent is that we would like to have elements from the current bandstand incorporated in, but I think that we can do that with a variety of different roof lines. That's more of a fascia thing that we would be having decorative things around the edges of them. So they're labeled 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I just wanted to get your thoughts. One other thing, there's some smaller pavilions at the top of the hill that you put on there. That was, I think, is actually a pretty good idea. I was thinking more along the lines of just a boardwalk kind of thing along the top that people could set chairs, or you could have benches on, not necessarily covered, but you could have it covered and have them kind of like box seats or something like that. So that's certainly a possibility as well. If there are things that you think would look better for the seating and for the top of the hill, let me know what your thoughts are on that.
Those could also support activities at Upper Sankey.
Yeah.
So if you did an RC car challenge, what I see them do at the track in Albany, it's an indoor track, is they actually have locations for the people. They bring in all their boxes and they sit down at a table and then they prep their cars and they go back and forth. So
Definitely
having
need
something like
electrical
that there would give you an opportunity to work out of that as well.
Right. Well, and those could also just be multiple pavilions for people to rent out or to use for little birthday parties or whatever.
Concession stands.
That's right.
Sure. Well, and that's true. You could, for Harvest Festival or other stuff, you could have concessions up there or other activities that people could do. The hillside is also, some of these are showing an actual stepped concrete seating. Some natural amphitheaters don't have that. They just have actual earthwork benches, or earthwork different levels up the hillside with retaining walls or something like that. Or it could be either way. It could be bring your own seat kind of thing. It could be installed seats. It could be concrete benches. There's all sorts of possibilities. So don't let the images lock something into your mind, but let's use this as something to spur on conversation.
When I saw it, it reminds me of, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but the amphitheater at the community chapel.
Yeah.
It's just grass with
Ames Creek.
pressure treated boarding to hold it up, and then a walk path down the center so you could go back and forth.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, which makes it also nice for the person up here in the shelter on the top of the hill is where you could put your sound person.
Right.
So they can hear everything as it's heard up the hill, and they
Absolutely.
just run their cord right down along the edge to the band.
Or you could even have some conduit that has some cords, some wiring that's there permanently,
Right.
that people can plug into from one end to the other.
Yep.
Yeah, I like this. Though to me, it looks like it might be cement, but I know it says don't get that stuck in your mind. But the only thing I would say if we did do cement is the kids could use that for skateboarding down it and bicycles, which we wouldn't want them to do.
Right.
So I do like what Wally said about it. Have you been out to Ames Creek Community Chapel?
That's
Mhm.
what,
Okay, so you see how they have that, and then people put blankets down or their own chairs, or they just sit on the.
Yeah.
Like that.
I mean, that's a good point. We need, I appreciate the feedback on the kids, because we already have kids with bikes there at the BMX track. We don't know what they're gonna do on their way home or whatever, so we'll need to be aware and design things properly.
So my
Stuff
other
like that.
other little thought was, yeah, I think it's great, but so how far in would that go, cutting into like Upper Sankey, whoops, the parking center and stuff like that?
My thought originally was that this wouldn't cut into Upper Sankey much at all. It would, anything done at
Pretty
the top of the
natural.
hill would just be, maybe you know how those boardwalk,
Yeah.
walkways they'll have in parks, to get you up off the ground and protect the ground. If you have something like that along the top edge of the hill, with a railing, you know, you could have something as simple as that, and that's only gonna go in, 5-8 feet
Yeah.
into Upper Sankey. If you have the pavilions, obviously those would be a good, 20 feet maybe that it would not cut in, because we're not going to remove any of the hillside, but it would intrude into that upper part by that much. But that's very theoretical at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, and I don't think that's invasive to anything that's going on up there,
Right.
considering where it's located.
Mm.
So it's not near the parking, and it's just to the right of the old center path that went up and down.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So it actually doesn't go on towards the right side very far.
So we would put it on the right.
Looking at the grading that's already been done there anyway.
Mhm.
I think it's great. And I know everybody, your staff has probably really thought about it, but as much as people ripped up the idea of taking down the old bandstand, we'd have to really, with gentle hands, gloves, let them know. And what I would suggest is that when we get into it, maybe have some engineers write part of the article.
Mhm.
Because if it's just coming from us or from you guys, they're gonna just say, oh, that's, well, you know what they're gonna do.
Right.
But if you actually have an engineer that maybe gets interviewed and writes part of the article, why we can't, use that structure anymore and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Well, I know Dave Trask had asked myself and my wife to be there, to be interviewed for that, to kind of explain that to the community,
Good.
a little bit of our history with it, but also the need to replace it because of the engineering
Right.
report
Good.
we did get from that. So that's something we still got kind of on the docket to do, is go down there and be interviewed in front of that, explain the families that use it, but how we want to kind of incorporate a design that replicates that to some degree. So people, it fits Sankey Park, it fits with the historical piece of it as well. So they don't just come see a concrete structure there and go,
Right.
that's not why we like this, so. And that's what I would say in the design here is try to incorporate that the little pavilions up at top kind of do that right up in the gable. I see that. I would duplicate that same design in the large bandstand area as well. We talked about taking and maybe have someone do some wrought iron work to duplicate that gable design that we could just bolt into a new structure. I think the more we could use wood in the upper part of that would fit Sankey as well, and
Oh, yeah.
people would find that more appeasing to the eye. I personally would stay away from those round roofs. It doesn't fit Sankey Park.
No.
It's like something a big city would have.
Yeah.
The pitched roofs definitely are more of a design
Right.
fit, I think.
Yeah.
And
Good
I
point.
agree with you, Nancy, as far as those concrete seating. First thing come to my mind was kids going down out on bicycles and skateboards, just tearing it up. And I mean, we're already seeing that on the concrete in the playground of skid
Yeah.
marks and everything that's, it's being utilized. It's an opportunity for them, but,
Yeah.
Of course, handrails and things in right places would probably prevent a lot of that too. Up the steps and things, so.
One thing that I was thinking, and I am interested in your opinion on, the number 4, it has kind of an open end on one side that's higher than the other. So the idea behind that the taller end faces up the hillside because it gets more visibility from people higher up the hillside down to it. And then the opposite side can be more flat and face out into the park. Is that, but on the other hand, that also involves a shape that is not really very much like the original at all.
That's my favorite.
Is that a problem? Is that something that you would shy away from? Or should we go, because I agree, I don't particularly like number 3. I think that rounded roof doesn't really fit the park very well. And 2 is okay. I like 1 a lot because there's a lot of visibility in there and light coming in with that staggered roof design. But I also like 4 a lot because it has that, one side flared up to face the hillside and the other side that not as much. What are your thoughts on that? Is one of those
4 is my favorite.
Is there a way to make that fit the park? Do you feel that it fits the history of Sweet Home, that it fits the park, or should we look
Well, I think if you use
by that?
stones, not, natural stuff, big rocks, whatever, and, wood, anything that you could do to make that
Look like the hut
like
used to.
even the steps. I mean, I don't know. There's just tons of stuff that come to my mind, but I'm just trying to realize that, people don't like to see the trees gone. So if we could make sure that we're still using trees.
I think that's a good idea.
I like number 4.
I mean, look at this wall.
The surface
Me
area.
too.
It's wider. So if you're putting an actual band in there,
Yes.
it's a wider area to put a band and speakers all at the same time without blocking the players or having to move the speakers all the way out to the front. So the 4 people in the front are just getting blasted with music. And it does provide a better view looking down into it. I was concerned with 1. My only concern was if you used it for something other than a band that was playing in the rainier time of the year, you could get water coming in through that area.
Oh, that open area in the middle.
Either way.
Yeah.
But it's
Depending
gonna
on
blow
how
in
much the
anyway.
rain's going sideways.
Yeah,
Amphitheater and all.
yeah, usually you're not having an event, but
Yeah, but when this is built, I foresee a lot of events.
yeah,
Yeah, it'll be used a lot.
And I'm thinking also outdoor plays.
Yep.
yeah.
Outdoor concerts, not just presentations that aren't the same as a band. but-
Yep.
All kinds of things. Cinco de Mayo, the dancers up there, the whole 9 yards,
Yeah.
everything.
I could see Bob doing Macbeth up there.
Absolutely.
Are you? Lay on,
Well,
McDowell.
even if you did a pitched roof, versus that, depending on the height of it.
Yeah.
Is gonna see what you're gonna look down into as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
And then there are some of those designs that are just basically a one pitched roof, slanted,
Oh, a shed roof.
Yeah.
hillside, parkside. It's all beams and things that would maybe even do that as well. But I like the width of it because it gives it more usage that way, I think, for family events and
Yeah, it's
weddings
a
or.
widescreen kind of thing.
Yeah. That'd make a great photo op for weddings,
Oh, yeah.
right there.
And on a side note, with the covered bridge, with Weddell Bridge and all the improvements that have been made in Sankey Park, I really think it's going to be a more popular
Oh, yeah.
event space for a lot of folks. I think there's a wedding scheduled this summer there,
Good.
and I think word of mouth is going to get around because really, how many covered bridges can you have a wedding on? I mean, the ones that
Yeah.
are in use, you can't because it's an
Right.
actual road, but it's a picturesque place now for an event like that.
Yep.
Anyway, but back to this. So what I'm hearing is you do like 4, the design, the shape of 4. And I think with any of these, we can add elements to point back to the original. Are there any other aspects of the others that you would want us to incorporate?
Oh, I excuse me, on too, I kind of like the pillars there.
Mhm.
That I could see with stones and, things like that to look more natural.
Kind of a rock design.
Rocks, yeah.
Kind of like,
Oh,
okay,
yes.
what's on the map is better than rock.
Mhm.
That would look nice, kind of wrapped up post versus just a concrete post or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Post.
Even when you make the steps, if you have the steps that all going up to the bandstand, you could, like on part of it, have stone and not, the other part flat, of course, cement, whatever. Throw those rocks and stones.
So that brings up another question. Right now, the bandstand has a railing and it doesn't have steps down, it has steps down to one side. These designs show kind of a platform that has steps up on each side. Do you like that? Do you like more of a stage feel where it's a sheer cutoff and we'd have to have a railing or something? And we'd probably have a removable railing so that during concerts or something, if it was an appropriate thing, we could remove that. Have it not in the way for the performers, but for the general public, when it's not an event, you'd want to have a railing there for safety purposes.
Yeah.
What about the platform? What kind of shape do you
I don't
think
like
is
the
appropriate?
steps all the way up, all the way around because it gives too much access to people, places and things that shouldn't be on there.
Okay.
You have an event going and little kids will run up the steps too easily.
Well, do you need to have the steps? I mean, could it be on a flatter foundation? What's the purpose of the steps?
That's a good question. It's
That's
just,
like
it was there because
debate.
Adrian drew it that way.
Right, yeah.
Um,
So I mean, if that's an option,
Yeah.
not to have the steps,
My
then
My
you'd
thought
alleviate
is,
some of that.
yeah, my thought is if this is used as a stage for an event that's facing the main part of the park, those performers are going to access from the rear.
Right.
And they're going to use the natural hillside and whatever structure is there to access that back side and get all their equipment on there. And then if it's an event facing the hillside, it's going to be the same. They're going to access it from that point. I'm not sure that you really need those steps to access the other parts of it.
Right.
Right.
I think it's mainly a safety issue. You don't want people falling off of it. And so I think if you don't have the steps, you're probably going to want a railing around it.
Right.
And like I said, I think you'd probably want to look at having a removable railing so that you could, basically lock it in place and so that the kids can't pull them off. But that if the appropriate event, if they've got the right permits and everything, we can say, yeah, we'll unlock the railings and remove them for you
That's good.
for your performance.
My thought was, you're looking at number 4. It's got stairs, in my mind, is on 3 sides.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easy access. If a band comes in and you're bringing equipment in, you're going to drive down that road past the hut and bring it in to load it. And you can load from either side. And I've watched multiple shows in a field setting like this, or a park setting, where if somebody's doing something, they can actually walk up and down. Like a singer could walk out or a guitarist could walk out. And if you're doing a wedding in something like that, it's very pretty to have I don't know what they're called, there's the groom and the bride up on the stage,
Yeah,
and then the others are on the stairs.
On the stairs going down.
Going
Yeah,
down
it can
and
be
you kind of
very
a taper
picturesque.
out. It makes a really nice
Wedding
photo
party.
from there.
Yeah.
And then you can set things up. So it just makes it, and then if you're doing anything, and I'm short, so this hits me a lot. If you don't put everybody up a little bit, I'm standing behind
Yeah.
people and I have no idea what happened.
Yeah.
I've stood in multiple military parades.
Yeah.
At parade rest, and I could hear all the commands, but I have no idea what anybody ever did up in the front. So,
Yeah.
And also, if you have people, kids or whatever, sitting on the ground, it needs to be up a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you only have the vertical one, what I thought it was anyway on that one was on the hillside.
Mhm.
It was just a vertical drop. Kind of like you would be if you were at a concert.
Mhm.
That would be more of a concert side, or a band playing.
Well, and I guess I'm not sure if it makes much difference.
Yeah.
If we're concerned about people coming and intruding on on a performance while it's going on, well, there's going to be other people around
Yeah,
and other things in place to keep that from happening.
Security.
And then the rest of the time, it's just a structure in the park that people can
yeah,
use as they care to.
right.
You know, another thing, Blair, on that design, like
Would-
on 4, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
we've got this really wide width. You know, on all the others, most of it's all covered.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mhm.
some stages kind of have that push out.
Mhm.
And I'm looking at this natural arc you've got here with the flow of the seating. If the majority of it's covered, but the stage part of it kind of arched out away from the cover, where someone could actually step out, wouldn't have to be covered. You know, for performers, that would be quite something to step out a little
Mhm.
bit. So you work that whole crowd
That's true.
Right.
a bit too. So,
Mhm.
you know, maybe in the design, that might not be a bad idea to arch that concrete push out.
Well, yeah, you could do that, and but
Possibly.
you also could have, and you could have, ground seating right up to that arch. So that the floor level seating basically.
It wouldn't
It's
have
right
to
up to
be
that point.
covered, but you could just, like I
Yeah,
said, you
doing
could
that.
have that push out of concrete
who's
where they
doing-
could step out, people could be
Well-
right down on that lower piece.
Right, and if it in times when the weather's good, they're not going to be worried so much about being covered,
Exactly, because
Uh,
most of your outside events are gonna be in the summer months.
and that's going to be shaded actually
It'll be
probably in
shaded.
a
Yeah,
lot of times, yeah.
Dominic and Kevin just
You're
joined
late.
us.
You could join us.
Yeah, it wasn't 9:30, it was 8. Well, we signed you to a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the feedback. I think that gives us a lot to think on and some areas where we can direct the designs. But it's got me thinking a lot about the bandstand in general. I'm not sure that we'll be ready to discuss this on Tuesday's meeting with the city council, but we'll definitely at least the one after that, if not Tuesday.
So do you have Wally or somebody or us or whatever attend those? I know in the past we would attend city council meetings if there was something they wanted to ask us. Or does Angela or you just take that?
Usually if they have questions, staff answers them, but it's a public meeting and you're all, of course, welcome to
Yeah,
attend anytime there's an issue that is of concern to you. And there's usually time on the, identified where you can speak to any item on the agenda. So definitely keep your eye on the agenda that gets published for the meeting and feel free to attend. Any other questions on the bandstand or thoughts or concerns?
yes, you guys.
Just so you guys know, these, my wife got general ideas from Blair and then drew these like, here's some options. So they're just general designs, nothing specific.
Well,
Nothing written in
yeah,
stone.
that needs all of them, a lot more trees need to come out.
We're already talking about, we need a lot of really
I-
good PR.
And if this is gonna be something in the fairly near future, I'm thinking maybe we hold off on this corner with the lighting. Maybe even the path, that section, because obviously the picture is a little skewed with what's
Mhm.
really there. But
I think that with the path design and talking it over with Joe, we had talked about how there was a space identified for the bandstand to possibly go in a different location, and that path was designed to not be in the way of that. That you could still fit it in at a later phase. So my understanding is that the plans were fine to move forward and construct everything, and then a bandstand would fit in.
kind of looking at how this picture is, the path would basically go right through the Evo or whatever you want to call that thing, on the metal.
Bandstand.
stand.
Yeah.
I mean, it might go through the middle of the seating area. You mean the middle of the structure?
Yeah, basically, that's where,
Because the path that's shown on these pictures should be, I believe, is in line with the actual plans for the park.
And
there's definitely not that much room behind the Girl Scout hut.
Which isn't shown in picture 4. Oh,
And the tree,
no.
yeah, I guess it's kind of new.
So the hillside might be off.
yeah.
And depending, the problem with these computer generated pictures is sometimes it's hard to tell the slope of different things. So the intent with this was for the back end of the stage would go right up, butt up against that first bench that's now been graded on the hillside that recently was kind of created, you know, that area.
And just keep in mind, these are generic. I mean, they're not like, these are just like when Blair started this was which of the 4 designs roof lines do you like of the bandstand? Or how about the stairs going up or down, or
Well,
not specific locations or
Yeah,
anything?
that's what I'm saying is we've got the nine folded lights
Mhm.
that we're supposed to do, and there's also probably at least one of the big lights on the corner that maybe that hold off on until we figure out exactly what we're thinking going. Yeah, exactly where it passed.
Let's talk it over with Joe and look at the plans themselves and kind of talk about how this would affect it.
Well, I could see your point. I mean, it looks like there's lots of acreage behind that hut. Pasture there. Green lawn that's really not technically there.
No, it's all
Girl Scout,
hillside.
That's really
Yeah.
right up against the bank.
Right.
Yeah, pretty close.
And-
You can drive on it.
So that's a little bit, doesn't really represent it like it actually is.
Right,
Well,
the-
trees. It's actually more to the east. Because we were planning on making a driveway path between the Girl Scout hut and those trees. That would go towards the hillside.
Yeah.
Possibly utilize it for the harvest festival.
I think this just fits in what's left.
I think with other maps, it'd probably be easier to see. Because the problem with the computer generated stuff is when you have a hillside that's the same color as
Yeah.
the flat, you can't tell where the angle is or anything like that. So I don't think these pictures are really conveying.
Yeah, and she was having a hard time with that, trying to figure out what the elevation changes were. Because it's it also isn't round. It goes across, it comes out, and then it loops back in and comes around again, so.
Right. So, yeah,
And that's just dirt, so dirt and tree roots. So that's all modifiable.
let's grab Joe today and look at the map together to kind of talk about.
Yeah, because
How this affects
we're
it.
at the point now where we need to lay out that path
Mhm.
to do our lights and the rest of irrigation on that corner.
Yeah. And I think there should still be, if I'm correct, and I could be wrong, but I'm thinking that with the path, if the path goes where the design shows it, then there's still room for the bandstand to be. And it would just be that if there's an event on that bandstand, that path is going to cut through the audience or the immediate audience, but that's not a problem.
So, and obviously we can't like, big another meeting that's going on, we're trying to get ready. for it.
Yeah.
So are we still looking at doing an amphitheater meeting on that hill?
This is all a bunch of ideas. So yeah, I mean, yes, and we're considering it. I think it's all options are on the table. I don't, and you mentioned trees coming out and things like that would be necessary for some of this. I think that there's a fair amount, there's a lot of different possibilities when it comes to seating on the hillside. You could have full on concrete, you could have earthworks, or just have it graded in certain ways and have people bring their own chairs, or you have benches or whatever. There's even, I've seen amphitheaters like this where they have trees on the hillside and they have seating amongst the trees, and the trees are, just part of the atmosphere, and they're not super thick, so you can still see around them plenty. For your view.
McMiniman's up in Portland, the one out in, what's it called, Wood Village? I sat all around the trees there, just in a lawn chair watching the show. And I've not seen the show as well, because where my chair was.
Right. And so it's one of those questions of, do you want the atmosphere of those trees, that environment, or do you want everybody having a great view? And those are questions to be discussed and figured out.
The other question you ask, is this near term? I would expect this.
I think this is long term.
Long term.
So, get that and get
Yeah,
at least the big lights, irrigation. get the
Yeah.
screen, possibly utilize the stage, the cut area as a stage for now.
yeah, possibly.
So kind of what I was thinking yesterday.
Yeah, I think you guys need to just go on with what, you're supposed to do, and then probably work around what the path and the lights.
I think it's, if there's, if 5, 6 years or whatever, if there is definitely things.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
So it's gonna be in a year. So,
We'll plan around you.
well, we get those, just like with removing the tree. Why did you do this? Beginning?
Yeah.
One of those things is, sometimes you need to go pretty slow. I think it would have been easier to do it all at once, but I think we've seen what it was like to move some and then come back.
So that's all I've got on the bandstand. There's just one other item I wanted to talk about before we end the meeting. If there's any other questions, or I can dive ahead into that.
No, go ahead. I just have one item at the end.
Okay. So I just wanted to talk about kind of processes, like our process for how we do things, and especially when it comes to changes in parks and new we heard about the donor at the last time, and the proposals that they've made, and that's going through the process you've made your recommendation and it's going to the city council. After that, we had some volunteers offer to come and cut down trees here next to City Hall, which is not a park yet, but it is city property. And Public Works typically takes care of city property. We don't want to turn away volunteers. We certainly appreciate the help. The concern is that we need to make sure that we're going through the right process on determining what trees go out, who's doing the work, are they covered under city insurance, which is a really big deal, and then what's the cleanup look like, and so forth. Because in this case, with the volunteer work that was done next to City Hall here, most of staff showed up on a Monday and realized the trees had all been cut down, and we didn't really realize that volunteers were going to be doing that. And then it was a while longer before any trees were then cleaned up and chopped up and such. Are they still out there, or have they been all cut up? Yeah, so there's still work remaining to be done.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I just wanted to urge caution, and I don't want to slow things down all the time, but I want to make sure things are slow enough that staff can keep up. And I wish that other members of the other persons were here to hear this, but I'm trying to think of the most delicate way to put this without offending anybody. But basically, what ended up happening is that someone went to Ray and said, "Hey, we got volunteers to cut down these trees," and the Park and Tree Committee already said that these were good to come down and that we're going to do a dog park there. That didn't end up being true because there's recommendation. There's not anything official yet on what's going in there. It may be that those trees need to come out eventually, no matter what. That may be, and we're glad that we had volunteers to do it. The problem was that if something would have happened during that, if some accident happened when those were being felled, they were not on our volunteer. We didn't go through our volunteer process to make sure that they were under the city insurance. And there was no, Public Works didn't get a chance to weigh in on which trees were being removed to make sure that those indeed should be removed. And so we just want to make sure we go through the right process. So you recommend, council approves, but when it comes to maintenance of any parks and any trees that are going out, Public Works has the last word on which trees are coming down. And that's going to be based on expert recommendation. It's going to be based on whether they're a hazard. It's going to be based on the plans that we have adopted for that area. In this most recent case, none of that actually was done. And so I just want to urge caution. I know that we have a lot of volunteers and officials that are very motivated and that want to get things done quickly, and we want to do that too. We hate to be, government has a reputation for slowing things down and gumming up the works, and we don't like playing into that reputation. I think it's almost like a police officer doesn't want to be seen with a donut. It's kind of plays into that stereotype, and we don't like it. But there are good reasons for slowing things down. So I just wanted to talk to you and make sure that, please tell your friends and everybody, we want to be accommodating. We want to take volunteers. We want to accommodate donors, but we want to do it in a way that works and that doesn't leave us open to liability or without trees that we didn't need to cut down, because you can't just replace that. So yeah, that's just the subject I wanted to bring up. Are there any questions or concerns about that, or confusion as to what the process is?
So, so if we get an event and there's volunteers, then do you guys bring applications, or do we tell them to come to the, well, you said council first.
It depends on so if it's a city event that the city is putting on, then we usually handle getting we want volunteers, and we will have the information for them and take down their names, and so that they're covered under the city insurance. And so we will take care of that. If it's something beyond that is for instance, if the Park and Tree Committee decides that you want to work in the parks on a certain task, right, and that you've scheduled a work day for that, we will have that information. Staff will take that and we'll know, okay, this is the event that we're having. We know that it's here. We have records of it. We have the records of who the volunteers are and what they will be doing, so that that's all documented and it's covered under the city's volunteer policy and therefore covered by our insurance. If it's work that's done without staff's knowledge or without keeping those records, then we're not likely covered, especially if it's an activity that is higher risk. If you're out weeding, not a big deal. I mean, the worst thing that could happen, and maybe you might cut a small irrigation line, I suppose, is the worst that could happen, but likely not. But for other volunteer activities, we just want to know about it, make sure it's properly scheduled, make sure we know who's there, and that it's an activity that fits with our operations.
So one other question I have, so a while back, you weren't here yet, but we did the Adopt a Park. And so our name is still on the skate park. And so once in a while we go in there, we do clean it up. So should we let you guys know, okay, we're going to go down there this day and get
for something that's like just picking up trash? I don't think that's necessary, because that's a low risk activity.
You think?
We just want to know that you're the people who are adopting the park. And I don't know that
Okay.
you need to tell us when exactly you're going to pick up trash, but just knowing that you're the people who are doing it, and that we have you we'd want to have records of those volunteers.
Okay.
I think to your point, Blair, and I understand what took place, but I think it would help us if the city has certain steps or plans they need to follow. That would be a good document to put in front of us so we can see what that process is. So we're really all on the
Yeah.
same page of that.
Yeah.
And I understand what you're saying, because I can't just go out there and fire up a dump truck and dump a load of rock, because I think it needs to go there.
Right.
You know, I personally would know that I need permission to do that, but along your lines of insurance and the steps, I think that would be a good document to have in front of us, so
Okay.
that we know that, and then we can explain that to others out there that may just inadvertently say, well, you know, we need to do this, and say, no, there's a process that we need to follow
Yeah.
to do that.
So the adopted document that we should be following when it comes to parks and open space is the city's parks master plan. Unfortunately, that document is not a very detailed document, and we're working on trying to get it upgraded and updated to really fit our needs. But that's going to lay out the main tasks that we want to see when it comes to parks and open space. Beyond that, each individual park should have a plan of what amenities, where the paths are, where the different landscaping areas and so forth exists. And so those plans should be on file and officially adopted, that this is the plan for this park. And we did that for Sankey with the improvements. We said, okay, these are the improvements we're putting in. This is the plan. If, you know, suppose with the Sankey Park improvements, we had a lot of that work being done by volunteers. And to some degree, I think we did have some volunteers on some things with the playground, right? Yeah. So that was work that was done in accordance with the existing plan, and we had volunteers working on that and kept track of all that. So we can certainly work out a policy document that makes it very clear cut, but ultimately that's the thing, is that any work that volunteers are doing should fit in with those plans if it's a capital improvement, but they should also fit in with Public Works wishes when it comes to just maintenance of park areas. But we can get that more clear so that there's
I just think that's an opportunity based on what currently just happened. I mean,
Mhm.
of any volunteers, because it's really easy for us as park members to get a group of people together, go in and do something.
Yeah.
But there's a set of guidelines that we need to follow, then that's pretty obvious we need to follow.
Yeah. And we want you to be able to do that. When it's a bigger thing like trees, then it's more important to follow those processes. When it's something smaller like picking up trash, you probably don't even need to tell us. We just need to have a list of the volunteers that are doing it.
Or how it impacts other people or our divisions. We go through it all the time with beautification, where they'll have a group or a couple of people go do a cleanup on a weekend. We don't know nothing about it, so Monday, I've already got a schedule, we already got plans. And now all of a sudden, we have to go pick up this pile of debris or whatever.
Bags of trash lying around in the
And
park.
honestly, it kind of pisses me off, but we get around it. I think like the tree stuff is a whole different animal, because now we're dealing with possible huge public
Outcry.
perception. Yeah. You haven't gone through those proper steps.
Mhm.
You know, whoever that is, especially the city, could end up. beat up the cattle.
See, and I kind of felt that way the last time trees were removed out of Lower Sankey. My wife and I walked down there, like, what the heck just happened here? I don't recall anyone saying about removing that last section of trees out. Now, it might have been somewhere,
Yeah.
but boy, it caught me off guard. I'm thinking, I'm on the park board. I don't even know these trees are coming down this day. So, I mean, you know, in the reverse process, it works the other way too. And there was some comments the other day about a few weeks back about we need to take about 50% more of the trees out of the upper. And I go, no. I mean, Sankey Park was based on the ambiance of the trees sitting there. And I thought, we start stripping out the more, that's a real public issue.
Certainly there's communication on both sides that could
Yeah.
be improved, and there's always messages
There's
that get
always
missed,
opportunities.
and there's always ways to connect.
Speaking of that, though, we do need to start kind of curing the public or ourselves. Like those last batch we removed, I think 3 or 4 of those trees had stump rot. That's just gonna keep getting worse. As the trees continue to get bigger. So, as beautiful as they are, at some point, they need to go. They ran a forest.
It's the circle of life.
Like, the forestry teacher took a class there. It was pretty neat to watch him explain things to his classes. They were falling trees and he was talking about the marketing side of it. All this, and he said, these trees have already outlasted what they're worth economically.
Mhm.
And, at some point, they're gonna start reverting back to what they rot, they might as well fire them. So,
Well, I agree with what you're saying. I think the whole thing is the transparency of it,
Right.
is that communication thing. Obviously,
sorry.
you
Yeah.
probably know stumps and things because you're out there in the field working on that. And I think that's that opportunity thing we're talking about. I know you want to get it out, but boy, a quick note in the newspaper to let people know, we just reviewed these many trees in Sankey and they got stump rot and it really poses a public risk. They need to come out.
Yeah.
I think,
See, and I don't do Facebook, so.
Well, and
but it's out there.
Yeah.
It is out there. So at least when we get those, we had, it was funny, because I got to walk away from Joe, getting his ass chewed out yesterday with one of the neighbors. And the guy was lighting him up pretty good.
No wonder he was in a bad mood when I talked to him.
It was, it's just that way people, they get so emotionally attached to
Mhm.
a tree or a park, that they grew up here, and things change all the time. I kind of accepted that for the most part.
I think we're making great strides in this communication. One of the problems that we face though is that everybody gets their information from a different source.
Mhm.
And it used to be that you could just put something in the newspaper and everybody would know about it. But now we get something in the newspaper and only a certain segment of the city actually knows about it because they're the only ones that actually read the newspaper and the rest are on social media. And then we put something on social media and then folks don't involve. And in fact, I've stopped entirely using Facebook because for my own personal reasons, but that cuts me off from that information source. So finding that balance is really difficult.
We're just gonna have to put a big marquee in the middle of Sweden. We can put it up there. Trees are being removed today.
Well, except that, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
It's a
You
challenge.
can put the marquee out there, but you can't make people read.
Exactly.
It is a super challenge,
It's a
and
fine line. It's
we'll
tough.
keep on putting out as many, exploring as many of these avenues as we can.
Drop
But we're
leaflets
gonna
and
miss
complain
people,
about the garbage.
right? We're still gonna miss people, unfortunately.
Riverbend.
All right, that's all I got.
I can read
So-
anything.
For the Park and Tree Committee, a lesson learned for me from this tree event back here is don't assume that the stuff that Blair talked about is done. So all I'm gonna say is before you do anything, if you don't get a hold of me, at least get a hold of Angela and Blair and make sure that it's blessed off. Don't believe that it's blessed off before you go do something.
And I would just add, don't assume that Ray knows about it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes he said go ahead on some things when it wasn't actually an approved thing, or it wasn't something that was actually weighed in on by Public Works. That happened with these trees. And so just because Ray says go ahead doesn't necessarily mean that it's all clear.
That's what
We
I'm
need to
saying.
Make sure
Before you
that,
do something, check with Angela and Blair and make sure that it
Yeah.
went through the.
so, and I've talked with Ray about it. Ray's learned a lesson too. So there's been hard lessons learned by multiple people.
Okay. The last item I have for people here to know, put it on your calendar. Maybe this needs to get,
I sent it to Angela.
okay,
So-
so Angela will get it out, but on June 12th at Riverbend Park from 12 to 3 is going to be a celebration of life for Alice Smith.
Oh.
Okay, so several of us worked with her and I think that'll mean a lot. So Angela have that. There's people that are looking for a head count because they're going to provide some food, some prepared food ahead of time. So I guess it's COVID safe then.
COVID-friendly food, yes.
Yeah, I don't know what that is, but I've been vaccinated, so I. can eat
Prepackaged
COVID,
Twinkies.
So I don't really worry about it, but
Um,
hey, June 12th, 12 to 3, Riverbend Park.
Did you already send that to Angela?
I did.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna suggest copying Legia on as well, if you have Legia's.
I don't.
okay.
So I was just
I'll-
hoping Angela would.
I'll make
take
sure
care of all
Angela
that.
passes it on.
Okay. Yeah, because there's an RSVP and, you
Okay.
know, other directions.
Good to know.
So, anything else for to talk about?
So we're still meeting once a month.
Say again?
Still meeting.
We're still meeting once a month?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I don't know the date of our next meeting, but it's in June,
What is this? The third?
third Sunday or third Wednesday.
Third Wednesday?
Sunday.
Third Sunday.
Third Sunday.
That's when I
Third
have,
Sunday.
that's when I have to work at the church.
So the third Wednesday of June is the 16th.
16. Okay. So 16 June. At 8:30. 8:30.
8:30.
Okay, if there's nothing else, meeting adjourned.
Okay, thank you.
Huh? Oh, where you
No.
going, Kevin?
You're gonna be swimming now.
Hey.
All right.
You get to work with my son. Awesome.
Congratulations.